would like to welcome Pauline Allardyce, who is a trainer for community and counselling and a proud Aboriginal woman, to say the welcome to country.
Thank you, Wendy. On behalf of, I'd like to begin to welcome you all tonight. On behalf of Australis College, I'd like to acknowledge the Turrbal people and the Yagara people, who are the traditional custodians of this land on which we are gathering here today. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, for which they hold dreams, traditions and cultures of Aboriginal Australia. Thank you.
Thanks, Pauline. All right, so now I just would like to welcome Jodie from Mable. And Jodie, would you like to tell us a little bit about what Mable is?
Yeah, hi, thanks very much for having me. So fundamentally, Mable is a website where people looking for care and support can connect with independent self-employed workers in their local community who are providing a variety of different care and support services. So we basically believe that the two people who are engaged in the working relationship should be in control of that relationship. So via Mable and our various supports and services, we try and facilitate that as best we can for people.
Right. So how did it all start?
So Mable actually started from the experiences of one of our two co-founders, Peter, and his elderly parents who lived in rural New South Wales. They both had home care packages. Peter's dad, who was in his early 90s, was caring for his mum who had dementia. They had, I guess their experience was quite typical of the aged care sector as we know it, where they had various different strangers rostered coming out to their home to provide services at times that didn't necessarily fit their routines. They really lost control over that engagement, which actually made Peter's dad feel reluctant to actually receive support, which not only put them at quite a bit of risk, but also put a lot of pressure on Peter's sister, who was the only sort of adult sibling still living in the town. So it was actually from that experience that Peter joined with his friend and colleague of many years, Tony, and Mable, or formerly known as Better Caring when we first started, began.
So is it just for aged care or is it for all age groups?
No, it's really wonderful actually. Even though we started with the intention of supporting older Australians, Mable supports everybody. With the emergence of the NDIS and the nature of that model of support, we've actually become very, very popular for NDIS participants. So really Mable's there to support anyone who needs care and support in any kind of capacity. It does not discriminate.
Great. So what kind of services are on offer?
So the workforce, so just to, I guess, backstep a little bit, everybody who is working from the Mable platform is being supported to run their own business. So everyone is a sole trader. So they bring their various different skills and attributes, both professional and personal, to the table, which creates the ability to provide really personalised services. But in the more traditional sense, I guess the services you'll commonly find people providing via Mable are everything from companionship, domestic assistance, lawn maintenance, social supports, through to your more qualified support worker role where you're offering personal care services, assistance with medication, those kinds of things, as well as allied health professionals and registered and endorsed enrolled nurses.
Great. So if I joined, I could have a client who I might take shopping, or I might need to clean their house, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's up to me to choose who I would like to have, or do they choose us, or how does that work?
So while the engagement, Mable's not a double-sided mirror in the sense that as a worker who's providing services from the Mable website, you can't actually see a client. All you receive from them initially is inquiry via a message or via a job post. So it's a really good idea to ask lots of questions. but it is a mutual engagement. So the client is effectively reaching out to you first, but you are ultimately deciding, because it's your business, whether that client and that engagement is right for you. So we definitely find that through the ability of the worker and the client to mutually choose one another, it makes for a far happier, longer lasting and better engagement.
So I could pick and choose my hours if I did that as well, because if I'm working for myself and I've got kids to pick up, I could work between 9 and 2 and set my days.
Yeah, definitely. We've got two very clear types of people who use Mable to run their business. We have those people, as you've just described, who are looking for the flexible supports that work in around other engagements. It may be study, it may be family. You may actually be caring for somebody yourself. And then we have, on the flip side, people who are looking to build a full base of clients and a full-time business. So absolutely, again, it really is flexible and shifts and moves with you. So you're actually setting your own services, you're setting your own availability, and you're also setting your own rates because it is your business.
Okay, so rates, who decides on how much to charge?
That's an excellent question, and it's probably one of the most common questions that I'm asked in my role, especially when people are new to Mable, because we do have a lot of people coming across from traditionally being employees in the sector. So you ultimately set the rate as the person who is the owner of the business, but it will be in consultation with your client. So, for example, workers will have a guide rate on their profile, but many workers will actually charge different rates for their various different clients because the jobs look quite different. So when a client reaches out to you and you start having those conversations, it's really good to ask a lot of questions to understand what your prospective new client's looking for. We highly encourage people to have a meet and greet.
Right.
So it really helps in that decision making process, particularly around rates, but also whether the engagement is right for you, because often when we meet somebody for the first time, you may not decide that's the right engagement for you. But really, once you've had those conversations, you will determine the rate. And of course, if your client agrees to pay that rate, that's how you set your rate. So we also encourage workers to inform their rates based on things like the relevant award for the services that they're providing, to take into consideration the marketplace. So in the NDIS space, being familiar with the NDIS price guide. If you're providing services to older people, being familiar with what traditional service providers might be charging.
So I'm thinking maybe we can give them an idea of, what would be the average daily rate on a weekday versus a weekend, just to have a bit of an idea.
Yeah, well, we're at a turning point at the moment because the new NDIS price guide has just been released as of the 1st of July, and that always influences rates. So
Okay.
at the moment though, we are seeing a qualified, experienced worker probably charging around the $40 an hour for a weekday shift. For weekends, it sort of sits anywhere from about $55 to $65 an hour. And another thing that will really influence those rates are any costs involved with providing the service to your client. So another really important question to ask your client is, will I be needing to drive you in my own vehicle? Will there be any expenses incurred, so parking or entry fees, that as an independent worker you'd be looking at incorporating into your charge rate?
Okay, all right. And so Mable it would help somebody with that if they were a little bit stuck with how much to charge. Yeah,
absolutely. While everybody is working independently from Mable, you're certainly not alone. We've got a call centre team that are there Monday to Friday who are answering these kinds of questions every day. So they're there to support you right through the registration process and on the other side as well. And I think it's particularly important to note that when you have people supporting people, sometimes things go wrong. So in the absence of a manager or somebody that you would usually directly report to, we're also there to help you navigate incidents and things like that traditionally the service provider would help you manage.
It was actually going to be my next question. Like, what would happen if something did go wrong in the workplace? Like, what do you do? Is there some sort of guidance or notes that they have to write up after?
Yeah, definitely. When you register with Mable, you are provided with a worker handbook, so a worker guide around some of our key policies and procedures. But if an incident does occur when you're on a shift with a client, of course, if it's a medical emergency, you would be ringing 000. But there is an incident reporting function built into the timesheets on the Mable platform. So whenever a worker has provided a service, they log into their account and they lodge a timesheet with a shift note for that service for their client to approve. But in addition to that, if there is an incident, that's where you would provide that additional information, which would then trigger our internal incident management systems.
Okay, right. So as a worker, would I need to get my own insurance just to protect me? Or what would happen there?
Not at all. That's one of the things that we provide for the worker fee. So during the onboarding process, workers go through a vetting process, which is very similar to sector in that you're building a profile and we're verifying your national police checks, references, blue cards, so working with children's checks where that's necessary, and we're also arranging your insurances on your behalf. So part of that profile building process is answering some questions that the insurance company needs to make those decisions. So taking a step back to your rates, like any business and building the business running costs into your charge rate, Mable charges 10% platform fee of whatever you charge, and part of that goes towards paying for your public liability, professional indemnity, and personal accident insurance.
Oh, great. So that means that nobody has to worry about their insurance and it's just automatically taken out, or do we pay at a certain time? How does that work? How does the payment work?
That's a good question. So as I was saying earlier, when you've provided a service to a client and you lodge a timesheet, once your client has approved that timesheet, that's what prompts Mable to send an invoice on your behalf to whomever's going to pay the bill. So as you may or may not know, there are many people involved in funding. Home care packages, for example, still sit with a traditional aged care provider, even though the funding itself is individualised. Participants under the NDIS have got various different ways in which their funding can be managed. So it may sit, the responsibility of paying invoices may sit with a plan manager. If the client is self-managed, the invoice would be sent to the client directly, or if a participant is agency or NDIA managed, it would be sent to the service provider who's co-facilitating the use of Mable with them. So Mable takes care of your invoicing, collections and payments for you, and Mable pays you less the 10% platform fee. So you don't have to worry about it. We organise all of the insurance for you. That fee is automatically deducted from your invoice before Mable pays you.
Okay, and I'm assuming because there's so many people involved in where the money has come from, there may be a delay in payment sometimes. Would that be the right assumption?
Yeah, it's really good to consider when you're running your own business that unlike a payroll, there can be different cycles of payment. So for people who are self-managed, for example, with their NDIS funding, generally workers are being paid within 2 or 3 days of a service being provided, because people like myself who are self-managing, we really value our workers being paid quickly because it affects our working relationship together if they're not paid quickly. But there is some degree of Mable sets up an agreement with any service provider who is a financial intermediary, and we do have 7-day payment terms. So but that doesn't always mean that that cycle matches with the cycle of, say, the plan manager or the service provider. So there can sometimes be a 2 to 3 week delay, but once you're in a cycle, it does tend to be paid regularly. I hope that makes sense.
So ideally what you would do is you would have your this is if what I'm assuming, you would have your profile up, you would have a look at other people's jobs, you would meet together, decide whether or not it's a mutual relationship that you would be happy to work with one another, and then that would most likely be your ongoing client. Are there one-offs as well?
There certainly are. I was a great example of that last week, where I hired a worker for a one-off engagement to support a family member of mine to take a train trip to Brisbane. So again, because everybody's life is so different, what you will see coming through for job posts and messages that you'll receive, they'll be really diverse. So most people are looking for that long-term engagement. They're also looking for workers who will stick with them, who will build that relationship and that rapport and get to know them well, because that's what creates really great support relationships. But in saying that, the Gold Coast is a great example of where a lot of people come to the Gold Coast for holidays, and they may be hiring support workers while they're here rather than bring their support worker from home. And it's not unusual actually to see job posts where somebody may be travelling overseas and they're looking for somebody to support them to travel overseas or to go on a cruise. So it's really, really diverse. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about the person who's looking for the support, seeking out their own workers and posting their own jobs, is you'll get that wonderful diversity.
Mm-hmm. So you could literally go on a holiday with clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We actually have workers on the Mable platform that is their niche business. That's pretty much what they do. They love to travel, and they've created a business doing that.
Wow, that's wonderful. So how do I get into Mable? So what I need a police check, I need a blue card, a volunteer blue card, or a paid one. Does that matter?
Yeah, it certainly does. So you need a national police check. We've had in place the national police check from the beginning because we knew that the sector was actually going to bring that in, which it has done now with the commission rolling out from the 1st of July. So a national police check and a full blue card. So yes, we can't accept a volunteer blue card. It will need to be a full check. You'll need to provide 2 references. And in particular, it's important to note that if you're registering to provide personal care services, assistance with medication, you'll need to provide referees who have witnessed you providing those services and who can verify your ability to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about an age limit? Are you too young or too old? What's the age limit to join?
At the moment, workers do need to be 18 years or above. That comes into play because of Zurich, who's our insurance partner, insuring workers on a professional basis. But as for being too old, there is a place for everyone, in the sense that when humans are supporting humans, that means that most of us have things to bring to the table that somebody else values. So we certainly have workers on Mable who are in their 70s. We have a wonderful gentleman on the Gold Coast who takes clients out who live in 24/7 supported aged care facilities now. And his clients absolutely love him because when they're out doing things together, they're of the same peer age group, so nobody even knows that that they're with a carer. And he's gone back and he's re-educated and done his Cert 3 in individualised support. So no, you're never too old.
That's good. You need a driver's license.
You don't need it. Yeah, you don't need a driver's license, but you will certainly attract more clients if you do have a driver's license. If you live in a major metro, for example, like Brisbane, and you have good access to community transport, I guess providing transport is not part of the service that the client is looking for. It may not be a big deal. So if you're providing domestic assistance or something like that, but you will certainly be more attractive if you have a driver's license.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, if I had to transport a client, would I have to seek extra insurance on my end for that, or would that be covered under Zurich insurance?
So you would need to let your motor vehicle insurer know that you're also using the vehicle for business purposes.
Right.
And you'll have that discussion with your insurance company as to whether there's an additional premium. That's what will safeguard you if you happen to have an accident while you've got a client in the car, because you've been transparent with your insurance company.
Okay. And does Mable have an app, or is it just the website? How does it work? Like, how do people get these notifications? Is it through email? What happens?
Yeah, so we do have both a worker app and a client app. So you will receive notifications either by email or text or both if you've received a message from a client. So yeah, we definitely highly encourage people, once they're up and running on Mable, to download the free app, because that will also give you access to your client's profile while you're on the job as well.
Okay. So if I was doing personal care, I would obviously need a Cert 3 in individual support. Would that be correct assumption?
Yeah, so a Cert 3 or above in a relevant sector qualification. So the rationale behind that is it's not so much about the personal care, because most of your clients will instruct you how they would like to be supported in that way. But by having a qualification, we know that there's been some formal education around mandatory reporting, work health and safety, knowing signs of abuse and neglect, and what you should do if you do think that somebody may be at risk. So yes, to provide personal care or intimate services like that, you will need a minimum Cert 3.
Okay. So if I was to do assist with medication, I would definitely need my assist with medication certificate, though, statement of attainment.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That is something that is necessary. Yes.
And what about workplace health and safety? Do I need to do a course in workplace health and safety, or there's so many different ones out there?
Yeah, there certainly are. For those who have their Cert 3 or above, they would have done a module in that qualification. For others who have not done a qualification, part of the induction does talk about work health and safety, and Mable is happy to provide online sort of connections with training and online modules that will help with that as well.
Right, okay. And is there any other, so if, for example, I can see in the attendees, we've got some of the students who are, one student's actually just recently completed her diploma. That would be the perfect person to join this platform, wouldn't it? Because what about somebody who's in the middle of doing their diploma? Is that still, I mean, there's a lot of units and they would have already covered workplace health and safety, legal and ethics. Is that still, are they still able to join then?
Absolutely. I highly encourage people to join Mable while they're studying and pre-completing their qualifications. There will be limitations on the services that you can provide, but it's a great opportunity to dip your toe in the water to get a sense of how it feels. And then once you've got your qualification, you just notify us, we verify your qualification, and then you can upgrade your suite of services to include personal care, assistance with medication, etc. Those services that you do need qualifications for. But there are many people out there who who really, qualifications are one part of what they're looking for. If they connect with you as a person, I often say sometimes it's best to work backwards as somebody looking for support. It's harder to find that person that you have that connection with. So if you meet that right person, why not start working with them while they're studying, doing the things that you can do together, and then once they're qualified, they will be able to do a whole lot of services with you.
Yeah, great. And can organisations use Mable, or is it just for individual people?
No, organisations can. Mable has what we call a coordinator login. We actually have a growing number of case managers, support coordinators who are working with their client to choose workers via Mable. So we highly advocate. That's a free service for those connectors. We call them connectors in our community because we really just want to make workers via Mable accessible to clients so that they can find great matches.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that means that if anybody is managing a person's care package, then they would find the support services. So they might find the house cleaner, the personal carer, the person to take them shopping, the social support, and it can all be found on this platform.
Yeah, that's correct. So you'll often see job posts that come through that when you read them, you'll clearly be able to tell that it's somebody else looking for support on behalf of a client. Often it's a family member that's doing that, but you'll often see a support coordinator, for example, who will be posting a job with their client because their role is around building capacity. So the support coordinator may be actually helping the client to build their ability to create their team and manage their team. So you could, as an independent worker, you could be a really great part of that team that helps build your client's capacity.
That's a great idea. Now, Sky, did you want to talk about some of our courses that would be suitable for working with Mable?
I definitely would love to. Just before I dive in and talk about some of our different courses, there was a really great question from Loretta Rickson. I don't want her to think that I've forgotten about her. So she was just asking, does the client create their own personal centered plan?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So Mable, while the profile looks different for a client on the Mable platform, the client does have the ability to build out a full profile. So they can add information about themselves as an individual, about their support needs. They can upload care plans. But because it's actually written by the client, I guess it's quite naturally person-centered because they're writing it about themselves. But absolutely, once you have engaged with a worker and your two profiles are connected, you'll have access to all of that information.
Fantastic. And she's just jumped in with another question. Do they need an ABN number?
That's a great question, and I'm very sorry that I forgot to say that. Absolutely, yes. So everybody working from Mable, because you are running a business, will need an ABN, which is free to obtain via the ATO. If you've not had one before, it probably takes about 10 minutes online to get one. If you have had one before and it's been deactivated, it may take a little longer because you'll need to contact the ATO just to have it reactivated again.
Fantastic. Okay, so now I will have a bit of a chat about the different types of courses and skill sets that you can pick up that perhaps might help you when you're working with Mable or you're looking at getting started with Mable. So I suppose it depends on where you're at. If you're a current student and you're coming towards the completion of your diploma or your certificate 4 or certificate 3, you could consider picking up one of our skill sets. So our skill sets are made up of a few different units that will help you specialize in a particular area. So they're not really as long as a full qualification, and they're fantastic for specialising. So at the moment, we do have an assist clients with medication skill set. We do have an individual support, home and community ageing specialisation skill set. We do have disability work behaviour support skill set, which I think Wendy can elaborate a little bit on, but would be fantastic if you are working with Mable and learning how to deal with clients that maybe have particular behavioural needs. Is that correct, Wendy?
That's right. Yeah, it's only a few units, but it's focusing on people with disabilities and how to support them if they've got any slightest behaviour, what to do if somebody is not doing what you want them to do. Essentially, it's not, guiding them, but it's actually helping them to see how they can improve on their behaviour and how you can work and manage working with that person.
Fantastic. Now, there will also be an individual support ageing skill set, and we will also have a home and community disability skill set. So, Wendy, can you tell me, generally speaking, I know that it does vary from skill set to skill set, but on average, how long does it usually take to complete a skill set?
Well, some skill sets are 2 units, normally about 2 to 4 units. So somebody working in the industry could really knock out a unit in a week. Other people may take a bit longer to do a unit, depending upon what their schedule is with work and life, and also how much knowledge they have prior. The assessments are you get the short answers plus the case studies and the projects. A lot of them also require you to actually have experience of working with someone or doing some kind of placement. So you've got that third party that can sign you off to say that, yes, you can communicate with a client, you can demonstrate empathy, things like that, where the supervisor would sign you off before you practice your skills on real clients.
Fantastic. And do you think for those attendees that perhaps are not currently completing a Certificate 3 or 4 or diploma, that the skill sets might be a fantastic opportunity for them to get a feel for what further qualification might be, or even to get a little bit of backing when starting out with Mable?
Yeah, definitely. We have a new skill set coming up called Induction, where it's pretty much just a glimpse of working in the community sector. It's only a few units, but it has, I can't even think what units it has in there, but it's got communication in there. It would have about legal and ethics. So it just gives you a taste of what to expect in a full qualification, but gets you, and also demonstrates whether or not you're actually interested in that sort of field as well. You may not be. You may think that this is a great opportunity, but you do the study and it's like, it's not for you. And that's okay. So that way you're not making a huge commitment for a certificate or a diploma. And yeah, you get a taste of it.
Fantastic. Now, even though they're not full qualifications, you are still issued with a certificate and you do receive statement of attainments. So that means any units that you complete, there is potential for you to use that for credits if you were to move forward with another qualification, as long as it crosses over at some point. And it's really great for professional development as well. Now, we do also have our certificate for in ageing support, and we are also offering a certificate for in disability. So I suppose those qualifications would be more working towards that professional qualification attainment and allowing you to step up your role with Mable and working more in a support role. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be right. I would, Jodie? So if they started a certificate for in disability or aged care, and that would be, or even did a skill set in induction, which just gives you a few units, that would be a good starter to get your foot in the door to get that experience.
Absolutely. It really, depending on the services that you're providing, skill sets can be a brilliant way of starting to build your client base, because not everybody needs that intimate personal care. But for example, you may be working with somebody who has dementia. So a competency-based assessment or some training in dementia could be exactly what the client's looking for. So we highly advocate for workers taking their professional development seriously. This is your own business. So yeah, the services that, the professional services that you're providing is your personal reputation as well.
And just on dementia, there's a lot of free PD out there that you can actually do as well. So places like Tasmania University offered 2 free courses in dementia as well as 1 on MS. So taking that opportunity to expand your knowledge, whether it's free or paid, still get a certificate, and that knowledge will actually will help you in your working life as well. So it doesn't have to be a skill set. It could just be just gaining knowledge.
Fantastic. Now, I do have a question for Wendy. So, Wendy, for our attendees that are watching now that are perhaps not studying at the moment and were looking to enter the industry, would you recommend the induction to disability skill set for them to start out with? Would that be your strongest recommendation?
Yeah, definitely. Also note that Mable is great to get a job. You won't be able to do placement through Mable because you need to have a supervisor whenever you do any placement for any of your courses. So, yeah, just as long as you're aware that Mable can't be used for placement, it is definitely a employment site, and because you don't have that person overseeing you all the time. So yeah, definitely the induction would be a really good start, or even just a few units that appeal to somebody. So things like communication, WHS, anything that is going to be relevant to what kind of role you want to play in what kind of clients that you want as well.
Fantastic. I think it's also worth noting, no matter where you're at in your study journey, so whether you're studying a skill set, you're starting out with study, you're an existing student, or you've studied and you're returning to study, we do also offer our first aid and CPR courses. And I feel like they would be a fantastic addition to anyone looking to study with Mable or in the disability or support industry. If you would like more information on the CPR and first aid courses, please just message in the chat pod below and I'll be happy to email you out some information packs. But they're quite affordable courses and really great life skills to have in general as well.
Actually, while you talk about CPR and first aid, Jodie, do you have to have CPR and first aid to work with Mable?
It's not a mandatory skill set, but there are a lot of clients out there who will request it, and it is a skill set that a client can filter for. So one of the things I didn't mention earlier is when a client is searching for workers, one of the reasons why it takes you about an hour as a worker to build your profile is it provides a lot of information that then allows the client to search. So a client can search for first aid if that's a skill set that they're looking for. So it is highly desirable.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Okay, and just lastly, I do have another question for Wendy. Now, Wendy, for our existing students that are perhaps studying our Diploma of Community Services or even our Diploma of Leisure and Health, what type of skill set would you recommend for them if they were to join a platform like Mable? Would it perhaps be the assist clients with medication? Do you feel like that would be most beneficial to them?
If they were halfway through their diploma, I would say finish your diploma first, because that's really important that you actually finish what you start. If you have finished your diploma and you want to build on it, definitely first aid, as Jodie said, especially if somebody can actually screen and find the person who has first aid, and then assist with medication, because also I'm assuming that, if you're going on cruises or overseas or even going to the shops with a client, it's highly likely that they have medication of some sort, even if it's a Webster pack, and having that assist with medication skill set will just get you that client over somebody else who may not have it. So yeah, first finish whatever you started, so whether it be a certificate or a diploma, then you can do first aid at the same time, but if you're planning on doing any other skill sets, look at the ones that all of our courses have WHS in them anyway, so that's covered. But look at what else you would need to expand your client base. So as Jody said, medication and first aid would be a priority.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I suppose I'll open up the floor to our attendees. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask Jody or Wendy? In the chat pod below.
Now, just while we're doing that, what I might do is I'll put Mabel's website up, but Jody will tell you why you won't be able to access it right at this moment.
I have to apologise in advance to anyone who may like to have a look at the Mable website this evening. It's not available this evening because we're doing a mass sending out of tax statements to all of the workers so they can do their tax for the financial year. So please bear with us. It will be up and running again tomorrow. It may even be up and running again by now, but I just want to set that expectation that if you can't get onto Mable, it's okay. We know about that, and there's a reason for that.
Fantastic. And is there a specific page that perhaps we could email out to the attendees that will take them directly to where they need to go to sign up or become a support worker with Mable?
Absolutely. It's pretty easy to remember. It's just www.mable.com.au. Have a browse around the site, have a look at our blogs, have a look in the help centre. That's where you'll find a lot of answers to your questions. But if you're interested in registering, in the top right-hand corner, at the click of a button, you can begin that registration process. As I said earlier, it does take about an hour to build your profile, but you don't have to do that in one sitting. And the best advice I think I've received from other workers who have registered is to have your documents saved to the same device that you're registering from, so that it's really easy to attach your national police check, your certificates, and those documents that you'll be needing to attach.
But if you have, if you get your WHS later or your first aid later, you can still upload that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You just jump back into your profile and you can add that service and attach the relevant documentations. You'll possibly need to offer additional referees if the referees that you provided before can't verify certain services that you're looking to register for. But absolutely, we highly encourage you to build your business by upgrading your services through professional development.
Great. Now, I'm not sure if everybody can see this, but I've got the Mable app. Can you see that okay? Whoops.
Yes.
Okay, so this is just the Mable app, and all I've done is I've typed in at the top my location, which is where actually I live, and I've done 20 kilometres around me, and I can see there's all these jobs that are listed there that I could actually choose from, and it will say some of the days are flexible and some of the days are more fixed. So if you can see that there's a strength and conditioning, there's a cleaner, there's a personal carer and social support. So the app's quite good because it's got all the jobs, then it's got an inbox where you can message people, it's got your agreements, and by the looks of it, you can add your timesheets on this app as well.
You can, absolutely. You can manage. The only thing you can't do from the app is register as a new worker. So you need to actually be registered so that you can access the app. But from there, you can even lodge your timesheets while you're on site. So some of your clients may actually like to write the shift notes with you, because at the end of the day, the shift notes is what, say, the NDIS or the care plan will reflect against to make sure that the funding has been used for services that meet the goals and outcomes desired. But absolutely do everything you can from your app.
Right. So I was just looking in here. There's one where it says support worker NDIS. Does that mean I would have to be registered for NDIS to provide support for that person?
No, not at all. That just means that the person is an NDIS participant opposed to an aged care or a home care package participant.
Okay. Yeah, there's some quite cool jobs in here, by the way. There's people are after to go to the pub on a Friday, to go to the football, to yeah. So there's lots of fun ones as well. There's another question, Pearlie said, if you already have people you want to work with or people who want your service, how will you be able to find them on Mable?
That's a really excellent question. We've got a growing number of clients who have already identified who they would like to work with. So what a client has the ability to do is via their profile to invite a worker. That's where they provide your name and contact details so that we can contact you to start that process and we can fast track your onboarding. So rather than you being in the queue with everybody else who's registering, if we know that a client is ready to start working with you, we can fast track your onboarding. And honestly, providing your profile is 100% complete and your referees have responded, you can actually get up and running on Mable within a few days.
So from the perspective of a client, what do they have to provide? So how do they register?
Sure. So there's 7 sections to a client profile. The first 4 of those are mandatory. Now, they're the ones that collect the client's name, personal details, emergency contacts, ask the client to do a work health and safety check of their home, which is now your working environment. And it is also section 4 is the payments verification section. So one thing that Mable does to assure that the payment source for you as a business owner is a good payment source is we verify with that payment source before we approve the client's account. So we will request, for example, from a plan manager, an email that confirms that the client is their client and that they're authorised to pay invoices issued by Mable on your behalf. So once the client's profile is verified, they're up and running. Sections 5 to 7, they're optional. So they're the ones where they can build out that really person-centered plan if they want to and upload care plans. But the reason why we leave that as optional is some people like to do that in other ways. They may have a folder that they keep in the cupboard above the fridge. So we don't want to impose that upon people, but it's available should they want to use it.
And is there a cost for consumers? So for the client, is there a cost to them?
So
other than paying for the worker?
Yep, absolutely. That's a great question. So your clients will pay a 5% fee on top of whatever you charge. So if you charge $40 an hour, your client will be invoiced at $42 an hour.
Okay, so that's not too much.
No, so our fees are really, really transparent, and we want it to be that way. We want it to be very easy to calculate, so it's easy to use, because historically, unfortunately, fees and charges have not been very transparent. So no, it's very easy to calculate.
That's great. Does anybody have any other questions?
No, I think that might be everyone for this evening. Okay, so I guess that brings us to the end of the webinar. In closing, was there anything else that you'd like to add, Jodie or Wendy?
I'd just like to say thank you again for having me, and I'm very happy for you to share my direct contact details if anybody would like to have a more personal conversation around Mable registration or anything that might be relevant to them.
Oh, fantastic, definitely.
Thank you so much, Jodie, because it's really informative. It's great to see the Mable website, but when somebody's actually explaining the whys and hows and how it started, it just gives you more of a background, and hopefully one that our students will actually start to use as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And look, it's a really wonderful space for workers to be valued like they've never been valued before. So yeah, we invite everybody to have a look and have a conversation with us to see if it's right for them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Jodie. You've been absolutely wonderful and you've shared some very insightful information. And thank you to Wendy for joining in our industry conversation as well. What we'll do for all of our attendees that have joined us tonight, we will send you a follow-up email with a link to the Mable website, and we'll provide you a little bit of direction on how you can sign up, and we'll include Jodie's contact details. So as she said, if you'd like to have a more personal conversation with her about starting your Mable journey, you'll be able to do so.
Great. Thanks, Guy.